Do you think? Hi, everybody. It feels great to be here in person and walking the halls of Decorex. And I'm thrilled to be talking to Sophie today. Last week we had our House and Garden party to celebrate the top 100 and our awards. And it was an extraordinary evening, kind of celebrating everybody's achievements. And Sophie won our most prestigious award, Designer of the Year. And she also won a special award for her contribution to the interior design industry for the charity she set up last year, United in Design, which hopefully you have all heard about, but we will hear about more in due course. It was set up to address the lack of diversity in the interiors world, and it's extraordinary what she and the charity have achieved in such a short time. Yeah, so and Sophie has achieved a kind of a remarkable amount in, I think it was 7 years ago you set up your practice, yeah. And we kind of have featured several of her projects. It's extraordinary, and I'm so thrilled to be discussing her work today. When did you know you wanted to work in the interiors world or become a designer, Sophie?
Hi, everyone. I knew I was one of those quite annoying people who figured out what they wanted to do when I was quite young, and I also have the same history as so many interior designers I meet, which is that we moved a lot as a kid. So my parents, for strange reasons, not because they were in the army or anything like that was a logical reason, moved a lot, like right. 14 times I think by the time I moved out. So yeah, the kind of ritual of home and unpacking my bedroom and realizing how kind of special and important those bits and pieces were, and them coming into place and me feeling at home, I just became fascinated with the idea of how your space can affect your life, yeah. And that combined with a sort of interest in the arts and always an interest in property as well,
yeah, absolutely,
kind of came together as interior design.
Yeah. So did your parents let you sort of decorate or choose things for your room?
They let me do things to the things that they gave me. Yes. So I remember like spray painting a mirror pink, and I mean, it was the age of sort of shabby chic. So yeah, we don't dwell on that, but that was the vibe.
I was a bit the same. Yeah, moved my room around endlessly and stenciled the cupboards and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so how did it lead to where you are now? What was your route?
So I studied history of art at Leeds University, which I loved. Knowing that I wanted to be an interior designer, for some reason I was too nervous to do that as a vocational degree. I kind of probably should have done, but I loved my history of art degree. And then, through kind of summers and things, I did a course at Parsons in New York in interior design, a very short course over a summer. And then when I graduated, I got a job as an assistant to an interior designer called Victoria Fairfax, who was a very traditional, kind of classic English interior designer. And I was there for a few years, and then I went on to another company called Spring & Mercer, where I was given quite a lot of responsibility quite early on, mainly because we were just so small. After a few years there, a client, my aim in life was to bring in a client, because I was being paid such pittance that I really wanted my commission, which was this big thing, which I thought maybe I could actually pull off. And a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend wanted us to do their house, and my bosses said no, because it wasn't a big enough job, which I was livid about. Now completely understand why that wasn't a very clever commercial decision. Anyway, this contact basically said, if you take on the job, if you leave and take this job on your own, I'll give it to you. And the design fee was more than my annual salary, so I just thought,
no-brainer.
I'll give it a go.
You've got to do it. Yeah.
So there was no plan, no business plan, no money. I was living with a friend in her bedroom, having just broken up with a serious boyfriend. Did the dramatic haircut. It was just a big new moment.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. No, but sometimes you just have to make these kind of take a risk, don't you? And what excites you about your job? What kind of, because obviously the job is also filled with all sorts of stresses and admin, but what is the bit that kind of keeps you doing it and drives you forward?
It sort of changes. I think in the beginning it was obviously the creative part, which I love, and I'm sure we all love, and why we're all here. But when a business grows, we're now about 16 people, and I have this homeware business as well called Sister, which was a mental thing that I did last year, as well as United in Design. You sort of lose so much of, not the creativity, but I spend less and less time doing that and more time on the business side, which I actually find really interesting, and knowing nothing and having no clue what I'm doing, and kind of just learning from the people that I work with. And I have a very clever non-exec chairman, for example, which is I'm sort of paying for his age and wisdom, and he kind of comes and helps me out a couple of days a month. And it's actually things like that now which I just find really fascinating, and thinking about having accepted that I actually have made a company and that it is growing, and that maybe it should grow more, and that actually it's not all just going to go up in flames tomorrow.
Yeah.
Once you get on board with that, it's quite exciting, thinking that you could do certain things to grow it, whether that's marketing or business strategy. So it's quite a clinical answer to probably what
I think that's interesting, and I suspect there are quite a few people in this room that are designers or have their own companies, and it's just interesting to hear how you talk about it. And how did you find the guy that helps you, that comes with? That's quite important, isn't it?
He's very important. He's basically my business therapist.
Right.
I mean, he's got a lot of experience in how to actually like run a P&L and stuff. But really, I just sort of moan to him.
Right.
So I was looking for someone like that. I think I was about 3 or 4 years in, and had this feeling like I was just flying by the seat of my pants the whole time, and I was vaguely in control, but would love to just get a firmer handle on things and make sure, as I said, I didn't mess it up. I think we all just live in fear that you're going to mess it up.
Yeah, it's a responsibility, isn't it? And you've got a team of people.
Exactly.
And
actual jobs for actual people. So, I kind of interviewed a few people. I asked around and met some older gentlemen, basically, who came through my meeting room, and I just wasn't particularly enthused or excited about any of them. And then this one guy came in and was like bouncing around the room. He was so excited about what we'd managed to do so far.
Brilliant.
And asked me all the right questions, and I was just like, you seem great. And he is 3 or 4 years later. I couldn't.
You still kind of absolutely need a kind of. And Sophie, how do you describe can you describe your kind of approach to interiors and your style? Can you?
Yeah, it changes so much with every client and project, obviously. But at the root of it all, I think there is this thread of a love and interest in colour, and this kind of start with the art thing, which I don't know how to actually do it any other way at this point.
So you start a room with the art?
Yeah, exactly. So that can happen in a few different ways. Perhaps a client has a collection or a few pieces that they love and want to incorporate, and so you start with those and think about where are those going to go in the house. Or more often than not, actually, clients have not got any art, have bought some sort of random pieces over the years and accumulated things that they're not totally passionate about, but actually want to create a bit of a collection, or rather they want to fill their new home with art on the walls. And if you're not going to do that at a kind of investor level, we do that all the time. And at most of our projects, we're buying all the art for the house, which is the best bit about the job.
Yeah. And how do you work with the client with that? Because it's obviously got to kind of answer to their kind of...
Exactly. Yeah. So I kind of start with what I like. See how that goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes that goes well, sometimes not so well. And then people have things that they're just instinctive. Art is such a difficult thing to try and describe, but after a while you realise that Granny's house was full of strange portraits, and so they don't like portraits. Or they grew up by the sea, and so anything with the sea or blue in it resonates with them. Or they're a little bit afraid of photography because they don't really get it. And so, it's kind of a process. But I start with what I think is nice, and then go from there. And with art, a lot of the time, I have a kind of, I like really strong art. I like something that like reaches out and grabs your attention and makes you think and feel, rather than something just meh.
So that's why you want to start with it, because you know it will dictate that room in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's the strongest, most important part of a room. That's why it's my kind of theory. You know, sofas will age, maybe be reupholstered, maybe go out of fashion, maybe not serve the purpose. Antiques will live a long time, but I feel like, and I think it goes back to my upbringing. My parents have a couple of pictures which are nothing particularly special, but every time they came out the box and got hung on the wall, it was like, right, this is the living room, because that painting's here now. So I think there are these, it has that effect on you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's such an important thing.
And how do you, because I suppose my worry was starting with the art is that then I'd start like pulling out the colours and tying it in too much kind of thing, or do you?
Yeah.
Because you don't want it necessarily to
too matchy. Yeah. I do like matchy, but not too matchy. Yeah, I think it's the combination. So it's like starting with one piece, for example, if that's really strong and has rich like jewel tones, then the photography sort of just needs to sit harmoniously with it, and then perhaps there's a little sculpture, and then maybe there's some sketches, and having a mixed media and all these things, and they don't need to necessarily perfectly go together. But because I love colour so much, I think there are always, I don't know how many colours in a room we usually do. I feel like I'm getting more and more crazy with my sense of colour. Maybe it's going to just reach peak and then mellow out again. But yeah, I feel like you just keep adding. It's about the layers.
Yeah. Yes. So yes, it is about the layers. So you can even if you have pulled out the colours, then the scheme evolves as you go along, presumably.
Exactly.
And when you start when you sort of meet a client and start on a project, what is kind of the first thing you start doing to get the wheels in motion?
To get the wheels in motion. Once you've decided that you're all going to be friends and you like each other and they're nice and they think you're nice, and actually you think you can work together for the next couple of years, that's number one. Yeah. I've learnt my lesson the hard way. Don't work with someone who seems like they might be a little bit of a because.
And do you ask kind of questions to judge that, or
it's just your instinct, isn't it? When you chat to someone, maybe it's the dynamic between a couple perhaps is a bit off, or someone's being a bit rude, or the way that they question you, you're being already treated in a certain way. Anyway, that's working with ultra high net worth people sometimes. What do we do next? We grill them. We grill them about their life, how they want to live, what kind of home they want. Do they entertain? Who gets up first? Are they having a shower or a bath? Are they making a cup of coffee while they watch the news, or are they putting the radio on while they have an orange juice, or whatever it is? You know, where's the perfect moment for the sun in the house, for the gin and tonic moment at dusk? All of those things. How are the kids doing their homework? We basically grill people on how the intimate detail of their lives and how they want to live. This is particularly relevant if you're building a house not from scratch, but you're doing a full renovation perhaps, and you're able to control all these details. So yeah, we kind of start with that and this quizzing of, are there any colours that you hate, or are there any things that you really just don't want to see? And that's where stuff starts coming out. And so yeah, then it's a space planning exercise, and then working through the REBA work stages of design, essentially going through like pre-concept, concept, design, development.
Of course, And how long does a project typically take you? Or I suppose there's each.
Yeah, so this one on the screen is this wonderful house we did by the sea, and I have to be specifically vague about where it is, but that was like 4.5 years. So that's a really long one, because the house was a contemporary new build on a heritage site. We worked with Pilbro and Partners Architects, and there's this huge ground-up build, basically, where we did the interior architecture and the FF&E. So that's a really long one, and that's got delays factored in as well. Not our fault. And then others are a lot quicker. Although generally speaking, we don't turn things around in anything less than maybe 8 months or something like that. It seems to just take, thanks to Brexit, things just take a lot longer as well now.
They do. And do you find where a client is sort of very involved and gives a very strong brief, is it easier that they're like that, or that they kind of give you freedom and off you go kind of thing? What?
A mix is really nice, actually. We're doing less of it, but we love working with property developers and doing share
apartments. Is this
apartments.
a property? That's a development.
That's a good example. That's in Covent Garden, gigantic penthouse, and we just came in and dressed it, and that developer just wanted us to be original and creative and do what we wanted. So that was just a really freeing creative project for us as a studio, and an environment in which we could experiment. The crazy idea of there's a dining table, not that one, which is like dried flowers in a sort of under a glass tabletop. You know, that was just a mad idea which you'd never get past a private client, because they'd just be like, how am I going to clean it? What happens if this happens and that happens? Whereas developers just want those kind of showstopper moments, and so that's really fun. But at the same time, sometimes it's not that rewarding, because on the big reveal day, when you bring the developer in and you're just so thrilled to show them what you've done, they're like, great, are the brochures ready for the, you know, and you're like, why aren't you crying? It's so exquisite.
And they don't know the detail and what's involved in everything.
No, they don't really care in the same way, whereas a private client in their home and the process that you go through, you know, it's so rewarding. And clients who know what they want are great. We love them because it just saves so much time. But it's a completely different experience. In one scenario, you're just doing what you want and going off, and it's a lot easier, to be honest. But then the private clients, the challenges of working with them make the whole experience so much more rewarding.
Yeah. And you are actually creating somebody's home, which is ultimately kind of...
Exactly. And then you get to hear about how they live in it, and maybe they might invite you back and you can have a cup of tea in it with them, and it's just such a lovely thing.
Yeah, no, totally. And Sophie, where do you sort of glean inspiration? I mean, obviously in the last year or so, we've all had to rely on the screen a bit too much. But what other places or kind of people that you look to?
Yeah, it has been difficult not being able to travel, because that's a big one for me, I'm sure for everyone here. This last couple of years, I've really... For me, South Africa, my mum is from Cape Town, and I go there a lot, or I did. And going there was always a really inspiring kind of feeling for me, just because of how I feel when I'm there, and the people and the landscape and all of that, but as well as the energy of everyone there. And if you want to start something in Cape Town, you can just kind of have a cool idea, chat to some people about it, register a company. You know, it's just so straightforward. And I find that energy really inspiring, because you just meet people all the time who are doing really cool things. But in these last few years now of COVID, and I had a baby as well, so I haven't been anywhere. Just art, I think. I've really bought just far too much art for myself, and also we've been sourcing art for Sister. And I find those conversations with artists and seeing what artists are doing around the world really inspiring. And as I said, because I kind of, that's my creative process, to find a piece of art that really speaks to me is the thrill I'm looking for, because I can then see how it is placed in a room and how the rest of it unfolds.
Yeah. And where do you look to, without giving away too many secrets for your art? How are you kind of looking out for that? Or finding it for your clients?
Well, there are lots of galleries, obviously, that we love, you know, in the UK as well as international. There's some really great ones in Cape Town, like What If the World Gallery is a famous one of mine, favourite one of mine. I sort of just, after a while, it just comes in. Yeah. I'm very lucky. The emails come in with attachments.
With the private.
And I'm like, ooh.
Yes, exactly. No, I get that. And well, so this is your this was your own flat, isn't it? In
White City.
In White City, yeah. And do you find it kind of very different decorating or designing for yourself as for a client?
Yes. And I did my house during lockdown myself without any help from my studio, which sounds like a grand thing to say, but it was like quite hard to do it myself.
Yeah.
And order
Honestly, you've got
everything and organize it all. And
Yeah.
it was kind of going back to, I haven't really done any of that kind of raising orders for
Yeah.
fabrics. I messed up so many things. Anyway, we got there in the end. And yeah, it is hard because I just like so many things. But then I'm also on a budget, and so
Yeah.
every time I think of, ooh, that thing, I would love to do that, I'm like, oh no, that's a
No.
£20,000 pound dining table. I can't have that.
No.
So yeah, it's kind of being a bit more frugal and savvy and
Resourceful. I suppose.
resourceful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's been really fun.
And I suppose also doing it without your studio is you then don't have them to bounce the
No.
ideas off. So it literally
Yeah.
is your decision, and that's
Exactly.
quite stressful too.
It's
isn't
quite
it?
stressful. I ask my husband occasionally if he likes the odd thing that
Yeah.
I know he's going to have a safe yes answer.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
And that's not really collaborating. That's just manipulation.
I'm a bit like that too. So the two projects that you've probably all seen in the magazine, I'm now not totally aware of what's gone past or not. We featured in the last year two very different projects. One was a modern, clean-lined kind of house, which maybe this is that part? No.
Similar.
In
Richmond.
in
That
Richmond
one.
there.
Yeah.
And then we've also featured the house that was where J.M. Barrie once lived, and it was grade 2-star, I'm right in saying.
Yeah.
So it's completely different approaches, presumably needed.
Yes.
Yeah. And kind of how do you? Well, I suppose which one came first for a start? This one came
The Peter Pan house came first.
First.
Yeah.
Okay. And how was it different, the way you approached them?
Completely different because of the sort of mood and feel of the client, but also the property. So with the Peter Pan house, I'll start with this one. This one is in Richmond, and this is for a kind of young South African family who wanted to live in that slightly Cape Townian way of the indoor-outdoor spaces connecting and lots of light and a real fresh feeling, which obviously is a mood and that I completely understand and love as well. So, yeah, really we were just we did very little to the structure and interior envelope of the house. I think it was actually once designed by Kelly Hoppen for a developer, and so we were just updating it. But we didn't do anything structural. We did lots of decoration and refinishing of things. And we worked with, they had a really great art collection, so we just added to that, and they were particularly interested in sourcing more contemporary African art, which was music to my ears. And then they wanted these kind of rich, earthy jewel tones and a really natural sort of set of finishes. Whereas the Peter Pan house, she was Greek. She was so fiery and vibrant, and she had an insatiable appetite for patterned fabric. We raided the whole of Chelsea Harbour and put 1,000 things on the table, and it wasn't enough. We just couldn't find enough to satisfy her appetite for just boldness, which was so exciting, and also quite... this is what I mean about working with private clients. That, for me, was, at the time, I was like, this is too much.
Yeah.
We need to pair this crazy fabric with a plain fabric, please, because it's just too much. And actually, she didn't listen to me, which was fine. And the result is completely different to what I would probably normally have done had I had my own way. But she was so confident and knew exactly what she liked and wanted. And in a way, the result is so charming and something. And I think that, as a designer, is how you remain original, and every project you do is different, because if I just did exactly what I thought I should do every time, it would be desperately dull for everybody else.
Yes, you need to be pushed by
exactly,
your
we need to be pushed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose with the Peter Pan house, you were working with an architect who specialises in restoration and conservation, and it was sort of about marrying these bright colours with the pattern with a historic home where you couldn't, I mean, you had kind of quite, you had to respect that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very strict sort of heritage requirements. And the amazing architect we worked with, Giles Quam, is really a purist as well. And so when he was like, you're going to paint the dining room yellow and the sitting room green and the kitchen purple, we were like, yeah. I think all of us for a moment there. And that's also like a feeling as a designer, I think a project isn't really going well if at some point you're looking at the whole thing going, oh my God, is this actually going to be okay?
Yeah.
Like or I'll go away from something and come back and be like, we did that with that and that, oh my God, it's going to be, and you look at it all in the confines of a small tray or on a presentation on a screen and you just think, well, I think in my head, oh my God, I really hope this comes together.
Yeah.
And it kind of does, and I think it doesn't, you're probably not pushing yourself enough unless you have that moment at some point.
Yeah.
It's always quite
But you're taking a bit
frightening.
of a risk.
You're taking a bit of a risk,
Yeah.
And I think the architects for sure thought we were taking loads of risks.
Yes, because they would have liked colours that were kind of relevant to the period of the house.
Exactly, yeah. And we did try that to begin with, but we, as I say, we were kind of just pushed for it to just be bold, more and more bold. And that actually all of us just, it has a lovely feel, the house, to it. And it all kind of sings together. And in this instance, we didn't do the art, actually. And it was stressing me out through the process, because we almost never have nothing to do with the art.
Yeah.
But she wanted us to have nothing to do with the art. And so she bought this, I knew that she had all these things and she was buying more and we weren't seeing them. I was like, what is
Didn't know where they were going.
Didn't know where they were going to go. And then we finished. And then I came back a few weeks later and she'd put it all up and it was just perfection. And every piece, she was a very creative person. And so she knew what she was doing.
Yeah, and they all feel like they were meant for that room, don't they?
Yeah.
No, it's kind of really exciting to see. And how often do you commission crafts people to make things? I mean, obviously the joinery or whatever, but beyond that.
All the time, whenever we can, really. I think my kind of design style is to mix old and new and mix in bespoke things. And I don't particularly like the idea of everything being made to order and bespoke just for the hell of it. I'd rather find an old rattan chair and an old 50s lamp, and then if I need to make a bespoke dining table because I can't find something that we're looking for. But we do it all the time, and it's just one of the great joys of the job is to have these incredible talented people who can come and do the most niche things like basket weaving or whatever it is, come into the studio, tell us about what they do, and then get creative and think about how can we turn that into a piece of furniture or a piece of design. That drinks cabinet at the end is one from Pinch, which we did a kind of bespoke version of with this stunning cathedral glass, which is like the glass of a stained glass window on the front of it, and it just has this really lovely feel to it. We there are always a few touch points in every room, and that is really one of the great pleasures of
and
the
once
job.
something like that, were you finding the glass person and kind of introducing them to Pinch to make it all? Yes,
exactly. So just sort of putting people together. And I mean, Pinch can do anything, and they were completely up for it. So
Brilliant. And this is all sort of going through. This is all still the Peter Pan house, which, as you say, lots of pattern, but lovely.
So much pattern. And all these titchy little Edwardian bedrooms as well. My first job for Victoria Fairfax, as I was saying, she was a very traditional classic interior designer, and so occasionally we have these more traditional projects where I get to revisit some of the things that I was doing with her, and like getting out a box of trims and being like, oh, let's put a trim on everything. It's just so much fun to have that change of pace as well with our other projects. So
and the sort of knowledge of that sort of decorating as well, kind of behind you, so that it doesn't feel daunting.
No,
kind of,
it's a lot harder, so much more complicated, and like a cushion schedule or a curtain schedule becomes a whole different beast. Because usually can we just do cream linen curtains, please?
Yes.
So it's like a completely different thing. But Yeah, really fun.
Yeah. And have you ever done a project in the country? I suppose
Yes.
maybe this is the one by the beach.
This is one by the beach. Yes, we have. Where was it? We've done, I'm now thinking of all the ones which were by the beach.
Yeah.
Lake District, we did
Okay.
one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you've done all over. I mean, this is extraordinary. This beach house, because it feels almost like it's somewhere. It doesn't feel like it's in this country, does it? It's,
No.
Yeah.
And this is another one with working with a private client. And we as I said, we did the interior architecture working with the architects. And when you see these spaces, particularly when you're designing them and you think, oh my God, it's so bright and beautiful and these volumes, and we did this kind of polished plaster to all the vaulted ceilings and the walls and everything. And our initial thought was, let's just do something really calm and elegant that really just makes the architecture sing. And the client was like, no, I like spice colours. I want everything to be so rich and like you're in a souk. And we were like, what? And it took the whole design team. We almost went through this moment of like grieving this sort of elegant pared back thing that we all had in our heads. And it's so much better.
Yeah.
So much more interesting.
And more sort of memorable and more distinctive, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really?
exactly. More unique to them. And
yeah.
They had a lot of art as well, and lots of lovely antique pieces too. So it was kind of combining all of those in this new setting.
Sophie, tell us a bit more about Sister and how you came to set that up.
Whenever I talk about Sister, I just laugh because I can't believe I did that. It just seems like such a mad thing to have done, set up a shop in this moment in time. But I did. And
when was it? I can't remember when it launched now.
It was about a year ago. Yeah. And it's going well. It's really fun. And the whole point of it was to create a little arena for me to play in and feel more creative and collaborate with quirky people that I'd spotted. And the whole thing was just meant to be so joyful and fun. And it's called Sister because I have a younger sister who is joyful and fun, and her life just seems so wonderfully not light in that she walks around like an airhead. She's got plenty of responsibility, but she just has this feel to her which I always am really envious of. And I think it's because I just pile so much on my plate in a way in terms of responsibility. Anyway, I wanted to capture the essence of her in this company, and in the kind of creativity of it. And we're trying to just create a window into our world for people to buy what we make and what we source, who may not necessarily be clients of ours. Because after a while, you know, our threshold with Studio Ashby for the sort of project that we take on, just by nature, when your overheads go up and your staff costs go up and all the rest of it, you sort of price out a lot of really lovely projects. We have a minimum spend that's just quite frightening now.
Right.
So it's just it's a way for the people who we can't work with Studio Ashby to kind of work with them a bit and have a little slice of some of the things that we like in their homes.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have a team working on it with it, especially?
Yes,
with it?
we have Sophie. Confusingly, I have a company full of people called Sophie and Sophia. Sophie Allen, she runs Sister, and later this year we're actually going to have a physical presence.
Okay, brilliant.
Drum
That's
roll.
exciting. Well, somewhere on the slides are a few of the pieces that you sell, and actually one of which is on, I noticed, was on your United in Design stand, which everybody should go and visit if they would like to talk more. But Sophie, kind of, this was a remarkable thing after the whole kind of thing with George Floyd. You know, where there was so much discussion in the interior design industry because there is a lack of diversity, and Sophie, together with Alex Dawley, actually got on and did something that really is making a difference. Can you tell us a bit more about what you have set up and what it offers? I mean, what you do, really. That would be good.
Well, it's thanks to Hatter, who connected Alex and I on Instagram. So like probably everyone in this room, I posted the black square after the murder of George Floyd. And I sat and I thought about what I'm doing as somebody who owns a company and employs people to run a diverse one. And it had obviously always been my intention, and I had tried, but I hadn't put any more effort in it than that. And you know, when we were hiring, I was always thinking, God, why are we not getting more applications from people of colour? But then I didn't really know what to do about it. And so we were just in a cycle of not being a very diverse company, despite wanting to be, and kind of making no major effort to do anything about it. And so in light of the Black Lives Matter protests and sort of moment, I kind of sat and thought about what I could do as the owner of a company to change how things are. And so I made a list of stuff, and you know, there are lots of things out there, lots of great schemes you can get involved with that do mentoring and partner you up with someone. But I just thought this problem feels so deep-rooted and is an issue at so many junctures of someone's entry into our industry, that we kind of need to be addressing it at lots of different places. So whether that's at school or at university, or when you're leaving university, or if you've had a career change later on in life. And then you introduced me to Alex, and she was thinking the same thing and had a really amazing experience through one of her daughters who participated in a kind of dance program through her school for people of colour. And it's a very long story, but we got together, made a charity called United in Design. The idea is that we put companies at the front of change, because my first thought was, right, I'm going to call up all the institutions and get them to do something about this and help, and like, you know, not naming names, but the big things that run our industry. And everyone was like, yes, it's on our list for the next committee meeting next whenever. And that's not how I operate. I was like, no, we need to do something now. Yeah. And Alex is the same. And so we suddenly realized, oh my God, I think it might have to be us who sets this thing up. And essentially, we've now got 170 businesses who've signed up. You pay a small subscription fee based on the size of your company. So if you're 0 to 5 people, it's £250 and goes up incrementally. And you have to pledge to do a certain number of things, whether that is take on a mentee, take on a student for work experience, let us help you find interns. And then the jewel in our crown is the apprenticeship scheme, which is awesome. And we've got 5 apprentices out in the world now. They've done 6 months at 2 different companies. And the idea is you have a year's worth of paid experience. We group 4 companies. So if you're a company owner, if you're a supplier, designer, landscape designer, anything, the reason you're here today, we pool you in groups with 3 other companies. So does that make sense? There are 4 companies. And then the apprentice spends 3 months at each of you, and they're paid £22,000 salary, which is what you need to be paid to live in London, unless that's what you need. And yeah, it's amazing. We've got Mercy, who's our apprentice, who joined us a week ago. She's already had 3 months at Turner Pocock and 3 months at Julian Chichester, and after us she's going to Hubert Zandberg, and that will be her year. Yeah. And we're all going to fight for her at the end, because she is supremely talented.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And there are 5.
If you go to 4 different companies, that's 4 different companies kind of looking at you and seeing, you know, and it's a very good interview process, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's really exciting, because it really will make a difference. I know I got my first job in the interior design world through actually working in their shop on a Saturday, but then kind of doing a bit of work in the design studio, and then, you know, a job came about out of that. But I was lucky, and you know, this is really giving people an opportunity,
exactly.
Which is exciting.
It's the foot in the door, you know. And I got my first job because I knew a friend who had a mum who was an interior designer, and that's, you know, the sort of privilege that many of us are benefiting from. And so it's for people who don't have the connections or don't know how to get into it, or it's not been a part of their upbringing or anything like that. It's just leveling the playing field and rewarding people based on merit, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
if you'd like to hear more, I'll be on the United in
Yes,
Design
go
stand
and
all
visit
day.
the United in Design stand. I really do think about if you've got a company that can offer this this apprenticeship. It's 3 months, and it's a good chance for somebody and also for you, really.
Yeah.
So, but thank you, Sophie, for talking to us today about everything and all that and your projects. It's really great to have you here and
Thank
in
you.
your very busy life. She's also got, how old is your baby?
5 months.
5 months. So, brilliant. Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't think we've really even got time. Have we got time for a few questions? One question. Gosh.
Sorry.
Would anybody like to ask that one question? It's quite loaded now. Yes, we've got one at the front here. Oh, wait, there's a microphone for you.
What's your favourite project that you're working on at the moment?
Good question. What is it? We are working on a project in Paris, and it's the classic, stunning Parisian apartment with parquet floors and French doors and the stuff of dreams, and that is just heaven. And quite, easy to mess it up, but in a way, just you can put anything in an apartment like that, and it's going to look sensational. So that's my favourite one at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.